Hey guys, welcome back to the Fluffycon Tournament. You're listening to Vol as usual, and I'd like to take the time to talk about some of the armies that were participating in the tournament. Not all of them. Specifically, this particular video clip will be focusing on the armies that were on display for the presentation awards, the armies that people are taking the time to really paint up, maybe some of the newer armies for the tournament. And I'll just start with my own one, since really haven't had a chance to talk too much about my own particular list and the actual artistic side of the army. This is a 2,000 point army. You guys have seen the 2400 version of it with the war altar and the two cannons. You've also seen the 2,000 point Masters version of it. This is the 2,000 point Fluffycon version of it, of course, just the two war machines and no war altar and no magic items except for one charmed shield. And recently I've taken the time to highlight some of the units. I got full points for painting on the scores, but really not all of the units were completely 100% finished in terms of highlighting. What I've done is I'd actually used some techniques on this army which were very rewarding in terms of time. Unlike, say, my High Elf army, for example, where I would just be layering up many shades of highlighting and shading, for example, with this army I'd really just gone over with the basic red and blue colours, splashed over most of the surface with the brown, what's it called, Devlin mud. And that's just really shaded all the crevices nicely, and all the white spray paint that's just had that Devlin mud gone over it has really just saved me so much time. And then what I did is I actually got the ice blue paint and dry brushed that over the blue sections to highlight it just straight away, and that allowed me to actually create quite a good look for the army very quickly. Going to the next picture, you can see a close-up of my four characters for the tournament. From left to right, the warrior priest, wizard, battle wizard, the captain, and the battle standard bearer, also a captain, of course. And just some points about these characters. The warrior priest is simply an Empire knight with the Chaos Chariot horse subbed in. I've actually cut the arms and gloves around so that the shield and the hammer's on the other side. That's the Chaos Warrior hammer, and of course the head from the flagellants, not so much the flagellants, the Chaos Marauder horseman kit with a Chaos Marauder cape on it, and it's got a knight sword glued to the side of him. So that guy turned out quite well. A lot of the choices in this army stylistically were for 7th edition, and 8th edition came out right after I'd bought the models, so bear that in mind. The wizard. I really like this wizard because he's a reference to a Warhammer Quest, which I feel is really intrinsically linked to Warhammer, the fantasy battles, and it's a shame that there isn't really more sort of campaigns that you can participate in that involve both sort of game systems, because I think Warhammer Quest was a very cool game in terms of the atmosphere it created, but it ties into Warhammer, of course, and that's my sort of tribute to Warhammer Fantasy, the board game. The general model got a few comments from people as looking quite nice. That surprised me because I didn't really put much effort into him in terms of what I did. I've just neatly highlighted him wherever I could. His beard has got a really interesting reddish look because I used a red wash on it, but that was just me experimenting, but it turned out to be quite nice. And of course the battle standard bearer, nothing too fancy there, except I've shaded up or highlighted the banner up with a bit of orange, so it kind of stands out quite nicely. Next photo, just another picture of my army. I've got the Hellstorm rocket battery up there, and that's really a bit of a rush job, but as soon as I had paint on it, it started looking good immediately, so that was quite cool as well. Next image, this is Graham's High Elf army, which I thought was fantastic. He's obviously put a lot of effort into it, and he's got quite a lot of different models, some from the classic 7th edition range, but he's got some of the new 8th edition models in there as well, a lot of conversions, and his army's painted very neatly and cohesively, and that's really what works as an army. When you pick a few good strong colours and combine them and keep it consistent, it's just really enjoyable to look at, and really makes it fun on the battlefield as well. His army, quite tough, relative to the other lists in the tournament, but none of us were really able to know what other lists were being submitted, so, kudos to him for actually attempting to create quite a soft army. It's just a shame that he got a low score relative to everybody else, because everybody submitted even softer ones. Going to the next photo, you can actually see a conversion he's done, which I love. It's Sigvald from the Warriors of Chaos range, with some conversions there, and he's taller than a regular elf, but then again, when you read the high elf background, you hear about elf heroes who are actually taller than their peers, and this guy really suits. He just fits the part. He's quite arrogant looking, as Graham himself explained to me, and of course the wood elf character as his wizard, which I think is really good looking as well. Going to the next photo, you actually see a unit of Maiden Guard, which he's used to represent Sea Guard in this tournament. I actually thought that'd also make great Phoenix Guard in terms of the representation there. For those of you not familiar with this unit, it's actually not really possible to buy these guys in stores, or these girls in stores. They came out as a once-off during a period of time where you could take the Queen, the High Elf Queen, Ilariel or whatever her name is, as a special character, and that enabled you to take some of these chicks as her bodyguard. And the models are really quite classic. It's great that he's managed to dig some of these up and paint them up. It's just a fantastic addition to his army. I'm sure you guys will agree. Going to the next photo, this is Simon's Warriors of Chaos army. I was very surprised, to hear that he had really just picked his list based on the tournament organizers' suggestions. This list is very hard because he's got 3 large blocks of guys with Tzeentch, so they're all 5+ ward saves from the parries, and with 30 models and mortars and 20 on the Chaos Warriors, that's just really powerful in 8th edition. It's not really fitting for Fluffycon in my view. He's got some Dragon Ogres and some Knights, of course Hounds and Chaos Horse Marauders. Even a Chariot makes it really competitive in this Fluffycon environment, so I felt really daunted by this army, but he did actually receive a good paints award at the end of the day for just doing so much freehand on his Knights and his Warriors, for example. Next up, you've got, this is another of the Nicks. There are 3 Nicks participating at most of our tournaments at any given time, and this particular guy has taken 20-something Silver Helms in his army, and he was actually the tournament organizer in the last 2 Fluffycon tournaments. I'm glad that he was finally able to participate, and I think that he's really sort of shown his style really by taking a very themed fluffy army, the type of army that you'd always sort of want to take but never could, and that's what Fluffycon's all about. And army looks quite nice as well. It's good to see lots of different sort of old and new sort of figures. Next image, we had a Warriors Chaos army here, which I took a closer look at because it was Nurgle themed, and that's another good thing about this event, is that you can bring out armies of a particular dedication that wouldn't really be very effective in a normal tournament. Nurgle certainly isn't the god of choice in the contemporary Warhammer environment. Just going on to a close-up, he's even modelled this classic sort of 2nd or 3rd edition Chaos Warrior onto a statue as a unit filler, which I thought was a beautiful touch. That's a really great way of immortalising classic sort of miniatures, is to incorporate them in little diorama type things like this. He's got quite a beefy unit in the form of this flagellant block with great weapons, and probably Marco Nurgle as well, not that I played him. Next image, this is the list that Ray took to Fluffycon, and he was borrowing somebody else's army. This is an army that I faced 2 Fluffycons ago, 2 years ago, and that was when I was just starting out, but it was a great looking army back then, and it still is now. Really striking blue colours there. Next image, I think this is Rob's Empire army. He's mixed a range of different models. He's got some of his pygmy African-style guys from his Ogre's army. He's got some Dogs of War there, some pikemen, and some classic Knights Panther. So quite an all-rounder sort of Empire army, and I'm glad that he's managed to draw from a few different sources to create quite a cool little look there. Next image, John and his Warriors of Chaos. Quite an interesting sort of mix here. We've got the classic giant with some fairly old edition marauders as well. Quite an interesting conversion on the chariot. So what I'm going to do here is just zoom in on the chariot with the next photo here and show you all the skulls that are covering it. I felt like maybe the skulls could have been washed a little bit to give them a little bit more depth, but the conversions here, or whatever he's done, or whether it's an old edition model, I think there are some serious conversions, because the horses themselves are from Chaos Knights. Just looking really cool. Next image, Amy showing up for a second tournament. You guys might remember some of her battle reports with me last year, and of course her entry into the Fields of Blood tournament 2010. And she's back with her fluffy version of the ogres. I actually already thought her ogres were quite weak in a normal tournament, but she's taken that a step further and, of course, introduced a whole host of different little proxy sort of guys. Obviously, Games Workshop doesn't supply any of these models. They are basically sort of stand-ins for ogres and noblars and so forth, but very colourful and a bit of a treat. Next image, Nick and his Wood Elves. You guys have seen him facing me many, many times. He's sort of a regular in my battle reports, but every time, you've got to notice his wonderful orange colours. Go to the next photo. This is the latest addition to his army, specifically put in here for the Fluffycon tournament of 2011. It's his Wood Elf Highborn Lord riding an eagle, and I think he's just done a marvellous job on it, so have a good look at that. Next up, I'm going to spend some time talking about this one because it was my vote for the best looking army of the entire tournament, and of course other people agreed with me. He was voted the #1 for painting and presentation here. It's Glenn with his Beastmen. You guys saw his Beastmen in a previous battle report that I posted a few weeks ago. But it's now a chance for me to actually take some photographs of the completely 100% finished army with some good lighting and some time to actually take some good pictures. So zooming into the next shot, you can see his characters here. He's got his Wargore, a Bestigor hero, and he's got a Shaman there as well. When you zoom in for the details, he's actually done his entire army to this level, really. His characters aren't really super sort of standouts except for the conversions. His whole army is done to the standard, and that's what's really impressive about it. It's not really just his painting technique, but it's his colour choices and his conversions and his real knowledge of the background and a sense of what really works visually for a Warhammer army that's impressive. Going to the next image, you can see his Minotaurs unit. For the sake of a softer list, he's taken 5 instead of 6 to complete the rank at the back. These aren't really my favourite models, but when they're painted and sort of converted to this sort of standard, I've really got to have a lot of respect for them. They are very detailed as well. He's done a lot of work on the bases, just putting bits and pieces, skulls and bones, and a consistent amount of flock on them as well. Next image, you can see his Harpies, which again, these Harpies are conversions. They are very well painted and very nicely posed too, with some of them up on bits and pieces to look as though are flying and flapping and jumping around. Next image, as you can see here, we've got a Wargore unit with a unit filler, and it's really nicely done too, with this sort of eye socket bleeding, and almost looks like there's a sense of really a sort of sinister bestial vibe going on here, which really fits the Beastman theme, nicely highlighted, and again, just gets the colour choices just right. Next image, I quite like the lighting in this photo because it's very shadowy. This is his other unit with another different type of unit filler, and you can see, of course, the pig chariots in the background. Really looking good. Final photo shows you his Centaurs. And I think Glenn told me he spent something like $400 in New Zealand dollars on this unit, because he's actually bought the Centaurs. He's bought some Chaos Marauder parts for them as well. He's bought another block of troops to use the heads for. And he's just put tons of time into this. So real kudos for actually just getting it spot on and having a really impressive looking unit there. Next image, this is Reed's Dark Elf army, and the really impressive thing about Reed is he's been playing for decades, really, wargaming, and he's got a collection of really ancient models which he can show off in these contemporary sorts of tournaments. You can see the really classic Blackguard, really sort of vile, sort of sinister, ashen, sort of volcanic wasteland bases, but the blue strikes through quite nicely as well. Next image shows you some really classic Cold One riders and really ancient witch elves mixed in with maybe a few of the newer ones as well. So it's quite cool to see those ones. Unfortunately, I didn't take a photo of it, but he's even got some first edition Cold One knights, which are just extremely ancient, even older than the ones pictured here. Go to the next photo. He's showing me some of his Dark Elf warriors, spearmen. Again, these are the older version, and he's got a unit filler, some sort of bird in the background. I'm not really sure what's going on there.